Dead Ringers. Actually, it's not Dead Ringers. It's Political Unmuted, and I'm here with the team. It's ever so good to see you. Thank you for watching us. We're very excited here because we've got some fabulously and dangerous topics to talk about today, and I think you're going to be very interested in it all. I'm going to just ask them to say hello. I'm not going to ask them who they are or to tell us about them because you know them by now. They are the team. Paul Daly.
Hello.
Stuart Sutherland.
Hello.
Samantha Townsend.
Hello.
There you are, my three experts. But we are joined today by Maggie Bosanquet, who is the... tell us about yourself, Maggie.
Oh, I am the low carbon economy team leader at Durham County Council. That doesn't tell you very much, does it?
It does. It tells us that you're the expert on things climate change.
I'm not an expert on anything, but yes, climate change, low carbon, green recovery, all of that, that's what we do. And I've got a most amazing team of people that work with me, and we are very, very, very passionate about saving the planet, which is quite a big subject, really.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about for our big story this week, and we'll see if we can pick your brain about the big issues.
Not my job.
There's a load of it. I know well. Let's start with moment of the week because it's been one amazing week. Let's just go around everybody again. Paul, moment of the week.
I'm going to do a screen share for this one because my mum will picture. I will describe it as well because we do go out as a podcast. But it's this. and I don't know how to describe it. It is Boris Johnson sitting on a swing in a children's playground at night, being pushed by, I believe, it's Richard Desmond, isn't it?
It is Richard Desmond.
And I believe he's a former pornographer.
He has pornographic magazines in his portfolio, yes.
And above his head, he has a very intense look on his face. And Boris Johnson also does as well, but in a sort of more. It's just very grubby. In a circle is a child that looks like it's being held against its will, and there's another child on top of Richard Desmond's head that I believe is a ghost. So, I think I've never seen anything that sums up British politics as much as this picture.
Sure, your past will find you out. Of course, that is directly relevant, Paul, to our second other story.
Yeah, and I just I wanted to make the link there, but I also kind of wanted to point out that the BBC don't want to show this. They've been blocked from showing this and a number of other pictures from this photo shoot, which are equally disturbing. And I think it shows this very strange relationship our Prime Minister has with these dark. Well, I suppose he's a genuine businessman, but it just seems quite grubby to me, and I don't like it.
It's bizarre.
It's weird.
We've looked at that long enough.
I think that's fabulous. Stuart's moment of the week.
That's a tough one. I mean, it's hard to beat Paul's. Lockdown life's kind of getting to me a bit, I think. So when I was asked to dress up as Maleficent for my daughter, I jumped at the chance. So this week I wore a dress.
Well done.
Yeah.
Is that different from usual weeks?
But it was a Monday and not, a Saturday, Sunday affair.
Well, I was reminded of the time when I wore a dress by my wife. I can't remember how it came up, but I played the Dame in a pantomime. And I still have in my garage the suitcase with all my dresses from that pantomime. It's shoved up on the rafters in the garage. And once I can remember being persuaded by the French exchange people to put it on and show them. They just couldn't get away with the idea of a man playing a woman and a woman you know, a woman playing the principal boy and all the rest of it. Sam, moment of the week.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was just going to talk about my sort of home education escapades, and I have actually been reading the kids the book The Boy in the Dress, which is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be, because the father in the story is dealing with like masses of depression, and they're really, really like homophobic and nasty. So I'm looking forward to that book being over. But I know, right?
Have you seen the film?
I haven't seen the film.
No, the film is cute and altogether non-threatening.
Maybe we might just switch to the film. Yes, we went on a very lovely little sort of bug hunt thing yesterday, and that was great. The kit was supplied by Atoms CIC, which are a lovely small non-profit organisation who are sending out home education packs, which having a little bit of something really helps. And once the kids had the magnifying glasses in their hands, they were off and they were getting their own shoes on, which is brilliant, because my kids are allergic to the outside. They want to live like a mushroom in the dark in a corner playing Minecraft all day. So that was really nice. But we saved a bee. We saved a bee from our paddling pool, and my 8-year-old, who, for people who don't know, my 8-year-old's autistic and sometimes you don't get a lot from him verbally. My 8-year-old was like, "Mummy, we need to get rid of this paddling pool. It's a health and safety hazard. We're going to get bees in here dying. We saved that one, but what about the next one?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's my child, isn't he?" He's like, "Let's get the unions on this."
Absolutely perfect.
I say we've been a tiny little bit jokey about the boy in a dress and stuff, which is actually a dark themed book, as you say. But I think it's nice to shout out to the LGBT plus community. Last day of Pride Month. So
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not a joke.
Newcastle Pride is going online later this month, though, isn't it?
Yeah. The awful thing about that is it would have been National Pride. It was due to be in Newcastle this year, and we've really lost it. It's a wonderful event. I go pretty much every year with my trade union to show support, and it's such a shame that we're not going to have National Pride there, because it was going to be absolutely brilliant, I'm sure.
Paul Daly, you are out of here. You've had 2 moments of the week.
Sorry.
Not acceptable. Just finish off with you. I saw the pictures on Facebook. You seem to have had a wonderful time. Fantastic pictures and a fantastic learning experience. And aside that, you don't need schools, to tell you the truth. I found this lovely thing about bees. Did you know that red mason bees, when they get old, they go grey? So they become grey mason bees. Maggie, moment of the week.
Well, I was red-haired once, but I've gone grey, so I can feel for those poor bees. My moment of the week is a very personal one. I've got my daughter living with me at the moment. She's got some mental health problems and she's not been very well this week, but she's also got a baby who's now 4 months old. And of course, with having him living with me, it's just lovely. Hard work, exhausting, but lovely. And I walked into the room, he took one look at me and gave his first laugh. Now, people do laugh when I walk into the room, but it was a very cute laugh. So that was really sweet. That's my moment.
But I can't get away with children until they get to the age of 11. Just run away from them. Okay.
I'm sure that's not true.
Time for the big story. What's happening, Maggie, is that we can't do jingles on the show. Promising, but failing to deliver. And so basically, what I have to do is I have to do the jingles myself. These. He
doesn't have to. We aren't forcing him to do this.
Yeah, I wasn't going to comment.
That's to the show. And everybody, the big story this week is the council's climate progress that we've been making. We've brought our experts in. We're just so honoured to have you, Maggie, really. And you're always so humble, but really you are the expert, the county expert. And I'm going to start off by just asking you, we've had the reason I've done it this week and sort of crowbarred it into the system is that we've had 2 absolutely spot on triumphs in the past fortnight, haven't we? do you want to, if you can't remember them, I can tell you. So do you want to tell us about UK 100, the County Climate Network, and then about the Mayor's meeting? Do you want to tell us about Durham County Council's 2 triumphs of the week?
Yes, yes. And we had a third one, didn't we, a few weeks back, when the Daily Telegraph, of all papers, announced that we were Britain's greenest city. So that was pretty funny as well. But yes, the UK 100, they're a great organisation. And we have joined them. They led this particular organisation by Cambridgeshire. You've been more involved than I have, actually, John, in this particular bit. But looking at rural issues and climate change, which tend to get overlooked. When you listen to people talking about climate change and what we need to do, they're nearly always talking about cities and buildings and industries. And actually, rural areas, the real challenge is transport, for a start. If you live up, Weardale had one of the worst actual per capita records on transport, because if you live up the top of Weardale, you spend all your whole life driving to get there. A lot of the housing is old, it's traditional, it's difficult to treat, as one I'm living in here, and so they tend to be high carbon. So rural tends to get missed out a lot, and I think it's very exciting that we've been invited to be part of this. I think as our press release, we actually use the BEEP project. BEEP is, we tend to use these crazy acronyms for our projects. We've got BEER and SLURP and BEEP. BEEP is Business Energy Efficiency Project or Program, and we work with SMEs across the county, helping them with energy efficiency, giving them advice. And it's been a really successful project. It ran for 3 years and it was so successful, we got another 3 years. So again, lots and lots of rural businesses are just as important as the urban ones, and often far more in need of help. So that's a quick summary. John, do you want to add anything? Because you were actually involved in the press release.
Well, I mean, it's about the needs of rural communities, but it's also, I think, about what rural communities can contribute, because they've got tremendous opportunities, haven't they, to actually contribute to help the climate change agenda.
Yeah, very, very true, because of course that's where all the land is. So that's where we can be planting the trees, caring for the peat, doing the different ways of storing carbon in the natural environment, the wonderful wildflower meadows and things like that you see that mean so much. If we lose our green lungs, we're all completely screwed, excuse the French. And
because up the Dale, we've got sort of all these things going on that we can trap the water up in the Dales and find ways to delay it up there, so it doesn't just rush down and flood everywhere lower down. So tremendous opportunities. Tell me about the Mayor's meeting, because this was your big, I mean, you're looking at me and thinking, that absolute amateur in hosting the program. So to tell me about your big triumph at the Mayor's meeting.
No.
He's a charmer, isn't he?
He really is a charmer, but I was absolutely terrified. So the Mayor's meeting sort of came from nowhere, and it became a very big event. Durham is paired with Tübingen in the south of Germany. We've been paired with them for many, many, many years. And their mayor, who is Boris Palmer, and a much better Boris than some of the other ones we know, he's done fantastic work, really fantastic work on tackling climate change in the city. So I think he gave a presentation last year and people were very impressed and asked if he could do it again. And he said, well, we, Tübingen, are paired with Ann Arbor, which is in Michigan, in the Great Lakes area in the United States. So can we bring them in? So it ended up, we had an officers meeting, we talked, we shared, and we were amazed at how much we had in common, actually, particularly with the Americans, which I probably hadn't expected. And from there, the decision was made that the 3 mayors, so the mayor of Tübingen, Mayor Boris Palmer, Mayor Christopher Taylor from Ann Arbor, and then our own leader, the wonderful Councillor Simon Hennig, would do a 3-way public event. And it took loads of organisation, and I was very involved because I had to write the script for Simon and put together a PowerPoint and all of that. So I was a bit on edge, but you know, I was hoping it was all going to go fine. It was going to be chaired by the guy from Tübingen, and then unfortunately his wife was taken ill, not COVID, I think she's fine, but so he couldn't do it. So 5 minutes before the event started, with the potential of 1,000 people taking part, although actually it was only a couple hundred, I think, in the end, they said, "Oh, Maggie, can you just field the questions, the public questions?" And I'm like, okay. I had no idea what I was doing, and I can usually kill off any technology. So probably because I wasn't prepared and just had to do it on the hoof, it seems to have gone okay. So the three mayors presented what they are doing. And obviously Councillor Simon Hennig presented everything that we've been working on, which is quite a big programme actually. And then members of the public could put questions, and I had to watch those, pick out the ones that worked, put them together, ask them, collate the questions, collate the responses, and try and make sense of it. So goodness knows how I survived, but it was a great event. It really was.
You were actually brilliant. You were absolutely brilliant. So we've got Durham County Council in the top 4. We knew we were in the top 4 councils. Sort of Bays have always trumpeted it as one of the 4 councils to watch. Then we got ourselves the greenest city in the UK. Then we were in this list of 30 rural councils, and then we were 3 international councils. So it's been a real triumph for you, hasn't it?
Well, it really has. We were actually the chair of this mayor's event actually introduced us as 3 world-leading councils, or not 3 world-leading cities, I think she said, and I was like, oh, I like that.
No, for world-leading authorities, how have we managed to survive without? How's our climate change agenda managed to survive lockdown?
Lockdown's been, well, it's been fascinating, of course. In terms of what we've seen, you know, the silent streets, the cars stopping, the planes stopping, the wildlife coming back, hearing the bird song. So it's been incredible. I think for me, the biggest message of all of it is that when the world leaves a crisis, we can act. The world can take action. And, you know, you wouldn't believe what we've actually seen. Nobody would have believed in January if they'd said, "Oh, we're going to stop everything." But we have, and we did, and we can. And I think the learning from that is going to be so important, so incredibly important. I sent John a picture, which I love, the shark picture, John, which to me sums it all up. So there's a little man swimming away, desperately trying to get away from a big sharky kind of fish, which is COVID-19, which is obviously chasing humanity. Behind the COVID-19 is a much bigger fish, which is the economic crisis that is going to follow from COVID-19. And behind that is these enormous jaws, terrifying jaws, which is climate change. The threat of climate change is far greater than anything that COVID has thrown at us, to be honest. And if we don't tackle it, then it really is potentially the end of the world, or the end of humanity as we know it, without question. And I know that sounds overdramatic, but it's facts. That's what the science tells us. It's my experience of working in this for 35 years and watching the climate impact. So it was.
Hang on, Maggie, for 2 seconds. Let's see if we can do the technology. Paul, are you able to allow me to share my screen?
Possibly. Yeah.
Have you found the picture?
Now. Okay, listeners.
Make sure you don't have your emails up.
If this is the end of the programme, we had a great time. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, team. That was great. Let's see if I can share my screen now. Here we go. How's that?
Yes.
Perfect.
That's the picture that Maggie was talking about, with humankind there, COVID, the upcoming economic crisis, and climate change beneath.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah.
Maggie, I mean, you know, I'm exactly the opposite to you. You're very hopeful that something's going to come out of this. I'm very negative. I think it's going to get harder. What do you think? I mean, do you see anything? How are we going to make sure that the recovery is green? That's the question.
I mean, first of all, I couldn't do this job if I didn't have a sort of positive streak somewhere in me. I don't know why, but it's in my nature. I got into this because it terrifies me back in the 1980s when I first started reading about climate change, before most people knew about it. I remember my mum said, if it was really bad, they'd do something about it. 1980. It used to keep me awake at night, and that's why I ended up working in it. And I think I feel empowered because I am working in this field. I'm so lucky to be in this job and working with wonderful people like them. So yeah.
Hang on, Maggie. Paul?
I'm going to ask a really, really difficult and maybe, please, if you can't answer this, don't worry. But I was just going to ask, can capitalism solve this problem? Will this be solved by the market? Or does this need to be led by states, governments, and socialism?
I think that's an absolutely fascinating question. I would have to say capitalism has caused the problem. Mass production, mass consumption, this thing they call the tragedy of the commons, the fact that the air and the sea and everything belong to everybody, so they belong to nobody, so anybody can dump their rubbish in them. It's all about money, it's all about greed, and we're seeing that a lot at the moment. Bizarrely, the countries like China that are very different kind of economies, they can manage their way. I know that China is the cause of a lot of the pollution at the moment, but they're building something like, they're building wind turbines and solar farms the whole time, because they can just do it. So that sort of managed, different forms of managed economy can manage. I mean, who knows? This is a life-threatening question, but I would have to say I don't have a lot of faith in the market economy solving it, because it hasn't so far. At the same time, some of the best solutions are coming out of the market economy, out of industry. Give people a challenge, and if they can see a way of making money out of it, they will act. So some of the great states in America are coming out with all sorts of technologies despite their government. Yeah, interesting question. Sorry, that wasn't an answer, that was a waffle.
I attended a virtual webinar about, it was totally different. It was about the well-being economy and how we make sure that equality is built into the well-being economy, because if you just base it on happiness, it could just be happiness for rich white men and whatever. Anyway, it was really great because there was loads of people with great solutions about how we can make everybody's lives better and happier, but the end was, but we need the political will to do it, and it's not there at the moment, which is just heartbreaking.
I would agree. I mean, we're seeing certainly our government, the American government, and many others just chasing money, and it's about short-termism, power, money, greed, nepotism, all sorts of things. I mean, yeah, it needs, I guess the real solution for many years has been long-term thinking, but all of a sudden we haven't got long-term anymore.
Yeah.
The whole 2030 issue is that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said we've got just 11 years left now till 2030. And if we haven't sorted it by then, the impacts of climate change, which we will no longer be able to avoid, are so great that communities and species and agriculture are just going to suffer beyond what we can manage. I mean, the results will be beyond. Well, it's the shark, isn't it? It's beyond what we can.
Yeah. There is a question on the Facebook, if you'd like me to read it out, John. Yeah. Gary,
I'll just interrupt you, Sam. 2 seconds. Yeah. Hang on, Sam. Maggie, Sam is the only one of us that can multitask. So she's texting and watching all the guests and everything. So Sam, read out the question.
Yeah, just to say, I don't know whether she's still watching us, but earlier on we did actually have Laura Pidcock watching us, so I hope she's still there. We've also got lots and lots of other people: Suzanne, Angela, Sam, Claire, Timothy, Deborah, Eddie, Barbara, Edwin, Andrew. Welcome, thank you. The question is, and I'm just going to read it as it's written. Do you think environmental issues are down to overpopulation and consumption? and that the only solution is going to be scientific?
Another very, very interesting question. Somebody challenged me on that the other day, and they said, we just need to cut populations. And of course, it isn't that simple. I mean, you could wipe out, please God you don't, but you could wipe out the whole population of Africa, and you'd barely impact on consumption. Whereas a few white, rich men in America are probably consuming more than whole countries. So it's certainly not just about population by any means. Consumption, yeah. I mean, we have this, all of us, I mean, we just want new things all the time. We want to buy things, we want to have things. We assume it's our right to have things. And we're taking stuff out of the earth and making it and then chucking it into holes in the ground where it just sits there. We're creating pollution in the process. We're obviously pouring out carbon, which is changing our climate significantly. And yeah, we all think that's okay. And there's whole issues about equality and justice and equity that, you know, how much have we got compared? I've got a friend in India, he's a young boy, he's got nothing, he lives in a village. And yeah, the amount he consumes, the amount that I consume here, it is obscene, absolutely obscene. So yeah, consumption, really, really important. Part of the solution has to be scientific, probably a lot. Scientists, technology, there are some fantastic solutions, and we're very interested in that, the work we're doing in the council. Things like using the flooded mines to find heat buildings, things like that. That's from scientists and technology. I couldn't invent that. But it's about people as well. We've all got to understand that this is real and act on it, as we did with COVID. People, almost everybody, until the Cummings issue, everybody was complying and was behaving. We all knew we were doing the right thing for everybody. So we need to get that message over as well. So it's about people and beliefs and behavior and caring. But yes, it's about consumption. And yes, science and technology, really, really important.
One last question before we bring this to an end, Maggie, and then sort of it's gone too fast. The Committee on Climate Change reported on how Britain is doing as a country in this respect. I mean, when you read that, were you heart-warmed or heartbroken?
A bit of both. I love the Commission on Climate Change. They're really, really good. And their assessments are excellent. And when I look at what we're doing and what they're saying, I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing okay, because we really, yeah, we're on the same page. There's an interesting page in there where they're looking at progress over the last year against what they said needed to be done. There's about 2 green ticks, about 10 to 15 red crosses, and then the majority are sort of in progress or something, some progress. So, I mean, the people in Bays are brilliant. They're really trying to push this. Sorry, Bays, the department. And there are excellent people who are really trying to sort this out. Commission on Climate Change, a big part of that. Whether this government is really going to take the action that we need, honestly, I listened to Boris Johnson today, build, and lots of words. He didn't mention climate change. He said green once or twice, but all his plans, he mentioned building lots of roads. Well, that's not green recovery at all.
And one last question before you go. Is Durham County Council still committed to their climate change agenda, or do you think that they're going to begin to renege on some of their promises made at the beginning of this year?
I actually think they won't renege at all. We've got a wonderful climate champion in Councillor John Clare. We've got the leader of the council who was on this event on last Wednesday.
Committed himself in front of the world to be staying on board. Yes,
he did. We've got a new department from being a tiny bit of a backside of some other department where we were completely lost. We are suddenly in the Department of Environment and Climate Change. Neighbourhoods and Climate Change. Yeah, I got that one wrong. And no, I believe the council's committed £3 million of its own budget towards which I personally got control of that money within reason. Obviously, I can't just go and spend it, but to commit to the projects that we want to do on climate change. I think the commitment is very, very real. But I can always hear John Oh, wonderful. John Clare shouting in my ear, scale, 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 because doing these
We're not
projects.
doing enough, but sort of, I think we've laid out a good 2-year plan. And I agree with you. I think that the aim is to be committed. Maggie, our time is up. You've been absolutely wonderful. I know that you're leaving us now, so goodbye and enjoy a bit of quiet, busy life.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Me. I've enjoyed it.
And we'll have you back. Trust me, we'll have you back.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And now, of course, it's I read the news today on in the way, and sort of show must go on. Right, okay. And we've now got the other. I think they're better, personally. I think.
Has someone got the telly on in the background?
Yes, so there's. I think we're getting interference from a television.
Is it me? I don't have a TV on, but there is a story happening upstairs. If I mute my...
Upstairs.
That's it. It's done.
You'll have to in and out with your mute button, Sam. The question, the first question we're going to deal with is the state of Israel. Is talking about and actually haven't done it yet, so we need to be very careful, but they're certainly since January been talking about annexing a significant part of the West Bank, and it has just become an issue, and we always ask our guests, our listeners, what they want to talk about, and this is what they want to talk about. So Paul, just sort of give us the background, tell us about everything that's going on.
Well, firstly, as you say, you mentioned the state of Israel, and this is about the state of Israel and Israel's government. I've seen people kind of blanket blame Jewish people for this. The state of Israel says nothing about being Jewish. You know, if you criticize the state of Israel, you are not criticizing people who are Jewish. So I just thought it was really important to make that clear at the very beginning here, because some people do mix that up and some people do criticize Israel and they mean Jewish, but we certainly don't. So what's happening at the moment is Israel have occupied more and more of Palestine since it was first created. Originally, it was just after the war that Winston Churchill drew some lines on a map and said, this will now be Israel and this will now be Palestine. And since then, we've seen Palestinian territories shrink and shrink and shrink. And we've seen Israel grow and grow and grow with more settlements in that part of the world. This latest plan seeks to make what is recognised as by the UN as being an illegal occupation as being legal. The plan actually will isolate a lot of Palestinians from the rest of the world, so they will no longer have a border with Jordan, for example, and also takes quite a lot of territory that is hugely important to them, such as places that they would, like fertile places where they would grow food. Donald Trump is involved in the plan. He wants to nominally recognize the state of Israel, state of Palestine. So people argue for a two-state solution, and this is that, but the concessions that Palestinians would have to make in this case would be quite huge and quite catastrophic to their population, to a population that I feel is already desperately oppressed.
When you look at the maps, it reminds me of the takeover of the West by the Americans in the 19th century. And you started off with now we say Native American, but in those days they said Indian territory, and they sort of drew a line up the Appalachians and say this is, despite the fact that at one point Native Americans covered the continent, they drew up a line up the Appalachians and said that's your bit and this is our bit on the eastern seaboard, And then they decided they wanted that bit, so they moved in, and they had large reservation, whole areas that they gave to the Native American peoples. And then they decided that they wanted all that as well. So then they ended up with small reservations. And of course, as soon as you get these little isolated enclaves, then sort of their civilization just collapsed. Now, do you see? Is this a parallel, or is it different to what's happening in on the West Bank, Paul?
I don't know enough about from what you described. It sounds very similar to that. I don't know enough about what you described to say whether it is the same or whether it isn't. But all I can say is that for me, we've got. I'm in favour of a two-state solution, but I'm in favour of a two-state solution that is appealing to both states, Palestine and Israel. Israel does have a right to exist. We need to make sure that Palestine's right to exist is also recognised. It's been such an awful time. I've spoken to the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign many times, and the oppression that they've faced has been it's been catastrophic to their culture, to their way of life, to them as human beings. They often don't have enough food coming into the area. They can't they can't really live as free citizens. If a lot of Palestinians live in Israel, a lot of Arabs live in Israel, and they are treated differently under law by the state of Israel. So say about that what you will. It's a really, really difficult situation for all those Palestinian people.
One last question before I open it up to Stuart and Samantha. I mean, at the moment, seems to be stuttering, doesn't it? It's having one or two problems. I mean, what chance do you give this of actually succeeding?
I believe that there's an extreme will for this to happen from Benjamin Netanyahu. The coalition government, they are coalition government in the Knesset, are saying, well, we can't really do this while we're concentrating on the COVID crisis. I think it's a delay. I don't think it's going to stop. There has been worldwide condemnation. There has been worldwide condemnation time after time for what the state of Israel has done to Palestinians. It has been an illegal occupation, and it seems very strange to me that isn't what we focus on a lot of the time, and it becomes an argument that just seems to ignore the fact that it isn't one side as being as bad as the other. It is one country is illegally occupying other territories
and internationally accepted as such. Stuart, I mean, what should Britain do about this? What would you have Britain do about this issue?
Oh, educate itself. You know, as a situation, I feel very unfamiliar with the nuances of it at the moment, and I definitely feel less confident on the subject because there's a whole atmosphere around the debate, the things that are going on, as if it's an untouched effect that you shouldn't go anywhere near it, and that's really damaging to actually finding a solution.
Sam, the Labour Party, what should the Labour Party do about this, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's hard because, as you know, the Labour Party aren't in power, so all we've got our words and suggestions are very much come down on what Lisa Nandy said about the fact we have to talk about perhaps looking at how we trade with countries that we don't approve of the way they're dealing with situations. And like you said, when they have been denounced across the world for certain activities that they're taking on. But going back to what Stuart said, education is so important. And in the Labour Party, talking about this issue is very difficult, and it shouldn't be. And we need the education so that people can talk about it confidently. Paul wants to speak.
Paul?
I was just going to say that our country's position is that we disagree with the annexation. That is what we have stated as a country. And the Labour Party have now suggested that it would be necessary to impose sanctions on those new settlements, not on the whole of the Israeli state, but on those new settlements, and not buy goods from those settlements that have been annexed. And this has been met with fierce opposition from Marie Van Zyl, from the Board of Jewish Deputies, who say that they represent the Jewish community in Great Britain. So that is the position that we find ourselves in at the moment. And I believe that the Labour position currently is correct. I think that should be what we're aiming for, and I would be very disappointed if the Labour Party roared back on that decision.
So far, the Foreign Office has said that an illegal annexation could not go unanswered or unchallenged, and no more. That has been criticised as being lacklustre. Are we all agreed on that?
Yeah. I'm always on the side of, I will always be on the side of the oppressed rather than the oppressor.
Utterly hopeless, utterly hopeless. This is something that the UN and the EU, by the way, are absolutely firm on. Thank you very much for your comments. The second topic we were asked to talk about, Sam, who has built himself into a right old mess?
Ah, nice. So you're doing these. I'm going to have to check my notes.
Talk to us about Robert Jenrick and what's going on with him.
Oh, right. Okay.
You did put this one on Stuart, to be fair.
Stuart,
right.
Stuart, tell us about Robert. No, Sam, you're all right. You're forgiven. You're forgiven. My fault. It's absolutely my fault.
I had to take notes on this because it's so.
Thinking about it.
You know, this is like every other Tory cash for favour scandal. That to make any sense of it, I had to do some notes. So Robert Jenrick has pushed for some building permissions to be allowed for 1,500 homes, and saved the man who was pushing Boris Johnson on that swing in that picture 45 million quid that would have went to the community.
And he's admitted that it was illegal as well.
Yeah. It's
he's admitted that it was illegal.
Robert Jenrick admitted it was illegal. Yeah. He admitted that he did it unlawfully. It's a bizarre thing.
Do you think that he ought to resign?
I think he should be sacked. Why do we always say, "Oh, do you think they should resign when they do crimes?" Well, it's not like maybe it's not a crime. He's actually said it's unlawful. Should he resign? He shouldn't be allowed to resign. They should just say, "You are not fit to be in charge of this department because you are abusing it." Simple. It's really, really simple. It's very, very easy.
I don't think that this government knows what the word resign means. Sam, now you're with us again. Have you any comment to make on this?
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to the total erosion of justice in this country, doesn't it? You know, that people do things, they're illegal, and there's absolutely no consequences, and doubly so if they're a powerful white man. You know, I just can't get my head around it. The state of courts. I was talking about this in regards to school fines. You know, they say they're going to fine parents for not sending the kids to school in September, but they don't have the facility to fine them because they've closed 50% of the magistrates' courts, and it already takes a year to take a parent through the courts to fine them, and that's before COVID. And people don't have access to legal aid, and the Citizens Advice Centre is overflowing with people who are desperate for help. And it's one of the things that really makes me feel despondent about this country at the moment. There is a huge gap in justice. People do bad things on the hope they won't get found out, and when they do get found out, there's absolutely no consequences.
Stuart?
It just feels so normalised. Like, this is, like, it looks like every other cash for favour scandal that's ever occurred in the Tory party. And, you know, now that it's out in the open, like Boris and Priti Patel have said, oh, it's out in the open, it's okay now. It's sorted, closed, case closed. You know, it's disgusting, but it's not unexpected.
Look at the other people who've been, who are in that cabinet, who have done some very, very dubious things. Like, I can't say that Gavin Williamson did something that, if he had done it, would have been treason. But when we were looking at leaking secrets, and he was sacked by Theresa May following that, and then he's just, oh yeah, we'll just put him in charge of education. You know, and Priti Patel went along and had illegal meetings with Israeli diplomats, and allegedly was promising them to fund their army with our foreign aid budget. And she was asked to resign, and she resigned, and then now she's the Home Secretary. You know, like, and Boris Johnson, sacked for lying
several times.
Career, sacked for lying from his newspaper job, and he's in charge. Dominic Cummings held in contempt of Parliament. The only person, I think, ever to be held in contempt of Parliament. He is allowed to do whatever he wants and go to Barnard Castle for an eye test. He can just do whatever he wants. We are living either in a kakistocracy or some sort. This is not democratic. This is not right. But people are accepting it, and we need to accept that people are accepting it and try to do something about that. Because I don't believe that people think corruption's a good idea. I think that people are too distracted from what is going on, so they may be distracted by an argument over a nuanced debate elsewhere in politics, or they may be distracted by any number of things. They may be distracted by dark ads on Facebook that tell them that, you know, Diane Abbott once went out in different shoes or something like that. They concentrate on those things.
Had a drink of alcohol on the tube.
Yeah,
she had a nice
and she apologised for it.
All over you.
Publicly.
I would have joined her for that mojito. You know,
what would you say, team, to what a lot of people who are listening to this now will be thinking, oh, for God's sake, shut up about what the Tories are doing wrong. Yet all you do, you lot, is harp and criticise and score points, picky details. Shut up. Let them get on with their job. Cooperate with them. What would your answer be to that, Sam?
Well, I mean, I think this whole thing and the normalisation, Mia in the comments says she agrees with what Paul's saying, that people should be sacked when they do wrong, and it's become a normalised, this level of corruption. And I think we have to say, if we are willing to sort of talk in a cross-party, really honest way, one of the reasons that people in the Northeast are happy to go along with that narrative is, and this is not me speaking, this is what people say to me at the doorstep, we never got anything under Labour, we're not getting anything under the Conservatives, whatever you vote for, it's a wasted vote, nothing's ever good's going to happen to us. So they just think they're all up to the same stuff. Somebody else has said it's the old boys network looking after the mates, and people will say that about both sides. I think it's a deep shame, and I personally am distraught that people think that about the Labour Party too, but it's true that that's what people think, and that's why I think it's important for people like us to be vocal and honest, and say, you know, that's not a future we want. We want a future that's fair, and we're willing to work towards it.
Stuart, last word.
Just imagine what that 45 million quid would have done for Tower Hamlets. You know, all those communities you know, that needed a bit of funding. That would have gone a long way to fixing some really, you know, devastating problems.
But as he wrote to Jenrick, we don't want the Marxists getting their hands on the dough. Better in our pockets.
And think how many towns could have benefited from that with the £500,000 towns budget for the 49,000 towns that we have in this country.
Yeah.
That is 98 £500,000.
It would have been all spent in Tower Hamlets, though. It was infrastructure levy, and they cheated people out of it by rushing it through. Right. That's the. Have we got no pass around to finish with as normal, Paul?
Oh yeah, we can do. I was thinking, you know, we started a little bit late. Do we want to have a little check of the questions while I get myself organised?
I've brought the two topics. Did any of us watch Paul Howell's maiden speech?
Oh, I was washing my hair. No, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Did anybody see the report of it in the Northern Echo?
Yes.
Come on, credit where credit's due, Stuart. He's not trying, isn't he? He's trying, isn't he?
I don't know. He talks very fast, I know that. You know, I'm not a great talker myself, but sometimes I think when he goes down there and he's asking for the Treasury to be moved to Sedgefield, they have a bit of a laugh at us.
I don't think he wants the whole Treasury, but I think he does want offices from central government moved up, which is absolutely in line with what the government wants, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they could give us back the money that they didn't give the county council for the last 10 years.
50 million a year for 10 years. Yes, that would do.
It's sometimes I think fair play to him. He's tried to say he wants to level the area up. I think it's a catchphrase. We'll see whether it happens. If it does, then well done to him. Thank you for doing that. I hope it's done in a fair way. I don't think, given the laughter that was, you know, directed in his direction when he asked his Prime Minister's question about the railway station in Ferry Hill and the Treasury being moved to Sedgefield, I don't think that's a popular policy on the front bench. So good luck to him.
I don't think he would have asked it if it wasn't in line with some of their thinking. I think he would. We'll wait and see. Especially when he repeated it in his maiden speech. It's sort of definitely the and it surely chimes with Boris Johnson's speech today about levelling up and
but the £5 billion is a drop in the ocean. You know, it doesn't match what the cuts had been. It doesn't bring us even up to where we were. Never mind where we would have been with inflation. You know, I think that we have a big problem with numbers. I think that people don't really understand numbers, and I say that as a maths teacher. I don't know what 1 billion people look like. I don't know. Like, it's not a very easy thing to get your head around. So 1 billion is absolutely loads, but you know, and 1 billion's far too much to have for one person. But there are like 70 million people approaching that in this country. So you know, that's like 1 billion isn't really a lot in that context. You know, it's.
I'll tell you one thing before we finish, Paul. That he's pumped 5 billion in, but over the last 10 years, he's taken 1.5 billion out of Durham County Council's budget.
Yeah.
He's taken a third of what he's put in. He's taken out. It's nowhere near. Right. Have we got something to play us out with?
We do indeed. Yes, we do indeed.
And is it no pass around?
It is. Yeah, it is.
I just cannot thank you enough. Sam, I'm so sorry to putting you on the spot, catching you off guard. Thank you so much for your contribution. Absolutely fantastic. Stuart, as always, succinct and on the nettle on the
Metal.
on the nail. And Paul, God bless you. Thank you so very much. We're going to play you out, people, with Joe's solo. It's become our theme song. No pass around, and it seems to sum up how we feel as a team. No pass around by Joe solo. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Same time.
I'm not afraid. I live and die by this vow. The only compassion is to that one they say, and around here we are. Nothing's left going months ago. Told him I come not to kill, but to cure. For an ambulance driver, my shot's pretty sure. And around the area, there'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. Ashes of our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around. I told my mother now, mother be strong. But the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone. For around the way now, there'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. Ashes of our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around. Kiss me because cast me because you arms and darkness you pass the west. It's to win, yeah, well you gotta get past those stairs and around the railway. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. Ashes of freedom, we join together. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. Ashes of our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around today.
See you later, everyone.